Joyride is a new comedy film playing in theaters, and I thought this movie was really good. I went to an early screen tonight. Theater was not very packed, and I think that's for a couple reasons, and I'll get into that before I get into the movie. I think the reason is this is a very crowded summer. Even for comedies, this summer has been pretty crowded. You have The Blackening still playing in theaters, which I know is not like a usual type of comedy. It's kind of more of a horror comedy, kind of like Scream, kind of poking fun at like genres and fun like that. But that's still competition for people like comedies because it still is more comedy than horror. There's No Hard Feelings, which is pretty popular, and I've noticed a lot of people are coming to watch that one. So it's just like I think that this movie is not gonna maybe track that well this weekend. Hopefully, I definitely think this movie will catch on, especially through word of mouth. This movie was very funny, and the theater, everyone there loved it. For the most part, anyways. I'll get into it, and then you have the marketing of this movie, which I don't think the marketing of this movie is really good because there's two things the marketing of this movie does really poor to this movie. First of all, it advertises this movie as if it's about this one Asian girl going to find her mother who gave her away at birth in on this road trip with her friends. That is an aspect to this movie, but that is not the main plot of this movie. There's other things that go on throughout the movie, but they didn't advertise a lot of that, right? And then they advertised this K-pop sequence, which they advertised the most annoying part of it, which is also the most memorable part of it. But if I was sitting there and I watched that trailer and I saw that K-pop thing, I would not want to watch this movie. I just would not. In fact, I would actively avoid this movie. So, yeah, I think that this movie is really good, and I think I think the point problem. I think the thing with this movie is it was trying to attract that crazy rich Asians crowd. I think this movie. It's interesting that No Hard Feelings was marketed as the return to early 2000 comedies because this definitely feels way more in line with early 2000s comedies. It felt somewhat like Judd Apatow ish to me, some like Bridesmaids, something like that, right? And it's really funny. All the cast has a great vibe to them. They're all got great lines and one-liners, very memorable characters, especially shit, I'm forgetting the character's name. Deadeye. Deadeye's got so many great moments. She's one of those characters that if this movie had come out in like 90s, early 2000s, they'd become like a classic like comedy character that people quote. Um, just because that's it is just hard with comedies now to make these things successful. But I think that character really worked, and there's a lot of great lines with that stuff. The whole movie is just really funny for the most part. I do have problems with this movie, but yeah, it was a really fun time. But it definitely felt like early 2000s comedies in the sense that it has like a lot of that Judd Apatow stuff. Like all the Judd Apatow movies are too long and they're just irritating in the sense there's a little too much immature humor, even though it's more of a raunchy adult comedy, right? This one isn't nearly as bad as his a lot of his movies tend to be with that sense of humor, but they were definitely like, all right, I get like I enjoy some of the dick jokes made me laugh, but there was one too many. Some of them felt just so juvenile at points, but that's just more of a nitpick. Um, Really, it felt mostly like his films. It's just like it's a really fun comedy movie with a great cast, but it also goes on too long and feels a little too dumbed down at points. Though mostly this movie was really funny. I consistently laughed throughout this whole movie until I would say the last 45 minutes or so. I stopped laughing as much. I think that there were definitely big laughs towards the end of this movie, those last 45 minutes, but not as strong as they were earlier in the movie, but it's fine. Um, I also think that this movie has a great message about, being connected with our roots, our countries, where we come from. Even if you are born American, you should be more in tune with, your ancestry, your race, your things like that. And you can be both and be happy, but it's always good to be more in tune with who you are, basically. And I thought that was a great message that was, a little heavy-handed at points, but it's like it's a welcome message. It's a really good movie. I had a great time with this movie. If you like early 2000s comedies, just go watch this movie. If you just like good comedies movies and you've been dying for one that's really funny, just go watch this movie. Again, it's one thing that bothers me about society now, where we keep demanding shit, but we don't support shit. Like, quit demanding comedy movies if you ain't gonna watch comedy movies, right? They come out, they're here, you ain't watching them, so that's why they don't get made. Even No Hard Feelings, which, like I mentioned earlier, was doing pretty good. It's still kind of disappointing. Like, you know, it could it's barely just broke. It's definitely broken even at this point at the box office, from what I was hearing or something like that. But it's like, could be doing better, especially with how much, again, people demand comedies. This is, I think, a way better movie than that one. So if you had the choice, pick this one. The audience laughed more than they did watching No Hard Feelings. So there you go.